This is Defacto Review, where we run down the top news from the previous week and then discuss what happens next. Hi, I'm Terrence Edwards, and with us tonight is our host, Jargal Defacto. How are you, Jargal?
Doing very well, thank you.
Great.
Hello. Let's start our news with John Kerry, the State Secretary visit to Mongolia.
Yes, of course. We begin our program tonight with a few words on the visit by United States Secretary of State John Kerry, who came to Mongolia for a short visit while en route to China. So, Jargal, I understand you have a few comments about this visit?
I have been following a surprisingly
Great.
Tweet of John Kerry, and he was tweeting about his visit to Mongolia. BBC was also referring his statement to his statement in Mongolia also. And he had very short visit, 6 hours in total, had a meeting with our Prime Minister and President, and also with some young leaders, some 40 young people whom he had called Future of Mongolia.
Okay.
He wished them to succeed what they have been planning, these young leaders. And also, interestingly, he said Mongolia is an oasis of democracy in a tough neighborhood. That was an interesting statement worth to mention. And also, he had visited mini Nadam, nearby Ulaanbaatar, where they have been performing, as usual, traditional 3 games of man in Mongolia: wrestling, horse racing, and archery. And he was trying. I think he did good with this archery. So that's very short of about this visit. What is important about this visit is it's happening just before election.
Yes.
And he had highlighted the oasis of democracy. In a way, I think it's a support of United States support of democratic processes happening in this country.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good message to Mongolians who want to see this country a prosperous, democratic society.
Yeah, this is the 3rd major visit from someone from the Obama administration. We saw Biden come some years ago, I think in 2012, and then Hillary Clinton came. She was the previous Secretary of State. So the United States is really showing its support behind Mongolia with this visit and the past ones. I think, Jargal, what I'm wondering is, does this compared with the Obama administration, the previous George Bush, have we seen more interaction with the United States?
Certainly, by all means.
Yeah.
Because these values we have in Mongolia, a lot is kind of resonating from the values in the U.S. And of course, there are problems they face. Now they have United States has own election, own interesting candidates, and the United States society is divided completely. And the Mongolian community is watching what's happening in the U.S. like any other country in the world, because it's going to be a very interesting election. And also a lot of similarity, because in the U.S. there is a huge inequality of incomes. And the idea, the concept, generally accepted concept, is the people think that the administration in D.C., overall the elite, political and business elite of the country, is way run parted from the general public mass, where living standard is lower, etc. So this kind of dislike, in a way, also in Mongolia.
Yeah.
So I think now we will go through several other events of last week, many of them associated with this increasing inequality in Mongolian society for only short period of last 20 years.
Yeah. And of course, the election is going to take up a lot of our program today. We begin with the General Election Committee has agreed to register the Green Party after the Supreme Court the General Election Committee previously denied them to back candidates, but the Supreme Court had ruled in favor of the Civil Will Green Party and that they should accept them for the elections. The reason for the General Election Committee's original decision was because of a problem with the paperwork that was cited. It caused some upset with even the chairman of the party, Sambo Dembarol, deciding to run alongside the Democrats while giving up his chairmanship. So, Jargel, I was wondering if you could give us some context for the Civil Will Party, what their role in this government has been, as well as historically, what role have they played in politics?
The reason why this party came out was associated with the late Zorik, who was a major leader of a Democratic Party.
Yes.
And towards when he was assassinated, after him, there was a certain fraction of the Democratic Party who became a political separate party, which was later on called Civic Will, when in particular his younger sister came after Cambridge to Mongolia back and decided to lead the political party.
Sanjasurin Oyun.
Yes, and Sanjasurin Oyun was a leader until now, but she had decided not to run for election this time. And another chairman, Mr. Dimbirel, left his political party and ran now for, as you said, with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So it shows this very fact that the election committee had refused to register initially. Then now today register shows two things to me. One, these institutions as election committee, election general committee, as institutions is not mature, not grown up enough, because they keep changing their decisions. How come that they decide not to register one day, then after a certain time, then they decide to register again? So it's politically not mature institutions, unfortunately. It's not only alone. This institution is not alone, that not mature institutions. Many political and economic institutions in the country are, using the word of Robertson, it's a lot, in a way, exclusive institutions.
Exclusive, not inclusive.
Yes. So this is a good example of that institutions to be not inclusive institutions.
Sure.
And I should also add here that sometimes they register somebody, or sometimes they accept some names, sometimes not.
Yeah.
So on which circumstance and on which it depends on, that's the issue. I think the Mongolian society has to only guess.
Yeah. And do you think the Civil Will Green Party is getting special treatment because it's been it has such a longer history compared to a newer party such as the National Labour Party?
A very interesting question, because now we have two major political institutions as party, People's Party and Democratic Party. And the People's Revolutionary Party is not initially not accepted, not registered, and later on they decided to have a hunger strike, then they have decided to accept it, etc. So it again shows how much all this our laws and regulations are not based on principles, fundamental principles that keep changing on any occasions, unfortunately.
It is unfortunate that there is some turbulence here, but on the whole, from my view, I like to see the smaller parties being able to participate, so I see this as a win for Mongolian democracy.
According to a poll, if you remember, you and me have been covering a couple of months ago, that this except this Civic Will and Green Party, the other political parties, according to the poll, was statistically unimportant.
Yeah.
So that's why the fourth political party, Civic Will, is being registered, and it will run for election. Shows it's better than no.
Yeah.
You see, so that's why we expect to see more political institutions rather than the individual independent candidates. Many of them have a lot chance to win, not because they are particularly good, just because their competitors from political parties may be very weak.
Yeah.
And the political parties also, in Mongolian political parties, have not been very much good, enjoying good reputation among Mongolians.
Yeah. Continuing with the elections, the former president and prime minister, Namber Enkbir, has called off a hunger strike that he began in protest of his exclusion from the parliamentary elections. Again, we were talking about exclusion just a moment ago. Nember Enkbar is a polarizing figure. He's often at the top of the polls for popularity among politicians, but he's also been arrested and proven guilty of corruption in 2012. He was pardoned by President Zaki Elbegdorch in 2013, which Enkbar is using as his reason that he should be able to participate in this year's election. The Independent Agency Against Corruption, however, has stepped in to say otherwise. So we're looking at basically two different interpretations of how Mongolia's democracy should be fielded. When we're looking at specifically Enkbar's conviction of corruption, does the pardon, in your eyes, give him the right to participate in this election?
That's the whole issue, because they can interpret the resolution of the anti-corruption agency resolution in two ways. One find it is still this conviction is not cancelled, so you cannot run.
Yeah.
That's the one interpretation. The other say no, with cancellation of with all this criminality of Mr. Enkbar means that he is now free to run. So you see there's this ambiguity of decisions, and particularly this judicial decisions. That's unfortunately happening in the country, and they interpret in their way which better serves their interest at any moment.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate, very. But then at the end, he is not clear that he will run or not.
Yeah.
Looks like up to today he is not running. So this country, many things may have been changed, within a week from now, unfortunately.
And of course, we will be updating you on that situation. But one more, when I look at, the globe has no shortage of controversial politicians. When you look at Italy's Berlusconi or America's Trump, but when you look at him, someone being convicted of corruption, how do you suppose that their popularity remains so strong?
A very good question, because he has been running a large position, a very high position for quite some time. Cannot separate many works, many political and economic decisions of this country since 2000 in particular without him.
Yeah.
Being a president, being a prime minister, being a speaker in one turn. So that's why he is very influential figure among ordinary Mongolians, in particular rural areas.
Yeah.
So that's why he is very popular there. Also because at that time of his presidency leadership, economy was relatively lower level, but constant. The people had not that much struggles they have when they face ups and downs of the mining-based economy.
Yeah.
So it's not that easy to raise his popularity for one day. So let's see. We cannot say now anything, but it is still, they say that he cannot run for election, but I will not be surprised if within a week he is still running for election.
Yeah.
If he is running election, he has a great chance to win that constituency wherever he is running.
Yeah. And of course, you can't, like as you were saying, you can't discount the importance of being there for so many important decisions throughout this country's history.
Yes, undoubtedly, yes.
Okay. The cabinet under Prime Minister Chibet Sakenbilik has ordered an increase to the pensions of 21,000, which many speculate is a move for the election. Taking effect from 1st of June, there will be an increase to the minimum payment for social insurance of 216,000 Tugruk, and 251,000 when you're including the military benefits as well. We've also seen an increase to welfare benefits of around 10%. Welfare pensions have been increased to a minimum of 140,000 and 64,000 for special care. So when I look at these, I see 21,000. about $11 US. Is this something that was long overdue, or is this just a quick cash for votes?
Mostly it's for votes, because from time to time you need to increase pension level, minimum or average pension level due to changes in inflation, and also for the economy like Mongolia, which is 100% dependent on mining. You need to increase the pensions because the exchange rate of dollar and US dollar and Mongolian tugriks. But now, if there is a particular concern of the government, they could do it much earlier. And they do it now from June 1st, even at the particular month of election.
Yeah.
I think it's must be show. And unfortunately that the cabinet does not specify from where they get this money. But what is clear, it is not clear from where the money comes from. But what is clear is Mongolian government debt, domestic debt and foreign debt keep increasing.
Yes.
And we are serving now 1/4 of our budget for just interest of the debt, not the principal. And the trend is it will be keep increasing. They keep borrowing more and more, in particular just before election. And every June of the election year, they keep spending more, usually. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and with such a small change, do you think for whatever the reason was, this can actually have a dramatic improvement on anyone's lives?
21 is about $10.
Yeah.
And if US and Mongolian tugriks will not be changed much, the ratio, the exchange rate will not be changed much. It is still some money to support, of course. You remember that 20% of Mongolians live under poverty line, and another 30% can go there beyond this age anytime.
Yeah.
So it's very important, $10 difference. In particular, if they have two persons in a home who both dependent on pension. So it's no doubt the money. But if accumulated, it's a big chunk of budget expenses. And they have not planned that in the expenses.
Yeah. And every penny counts when you have slowed growth like today's.
Yeah, yes, you're right.
Okay, we're moving on from the elections and going to industry, specifically mining. Japan has offered its help to Mongolia for creating a clean coal industry, as Japan pursues closer economic relations with Mongolia. Coal and copper prices have suffered along with China's slowing growth, and Mongolia has been one of the worst impacted in the world. Parliament Speaker Zendehu Enkbolt was in Japan last week, where he announced that Japan would partner with Mongolia for clean coal technology that could bolster the price for Mongolia's coal products. So what we're looking at here is basically getting more value for Mongolia's minerals. Do you think clean coal has a place in Mongolia industry? Is that something that we can build up here?
Certainly this is the agenda.
Yeah.
We need to process our coal better. And in particular, there's so many concerns, environmentally, many concerns. And we cannot sell this coal, particular brown coal, to China.
Exactly.
What we sell is only coking coal, which is used in metallurgy in China. So there are several agreements and even a couple contracts now with Chinese builders to make power plant, coal embedded power plant, coal power plant. And now with Japan, during our speaker visit to Japan, they have agreed to use this clean coal technology that Japanese are using for their coal power stations. Hopefully, we will bring it and do it. But however, we agree one thing with China, and on Mongolian side, they are not always. We agree with Japan to do several things, But before we have been also agreed that we will build power station number 5,
Yes.
which is taking somehow so much long time. Until now, nothing is made, no purchasing agreement is signed, and that's what always worry is the not consistency of what Mongolian politicians are promising and they're doing. There's a big, huge discrepancies between them.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will be more or less done. It will be some work after these promises. The other thing is this economic agreement.
Partnership agreement.
Partnership
yeah,
agreement.
I wanted to get onto that
The
next.
economic partnership agreement with Japan, which provides several clauses. For example, from 8,000 to 9,000 goods, commercial goods, will be coming exchanged without tax to each other.
Back and forth, imports, exports.
Yes, which is a good news. But my concern, for example, about the cars, because a lot of vehicles we run in the city, all around the country, mostly now becoming more than half is becoming a Japanese used car, which is with the right wheel.
Yes.
And this country has a left wheel country.
Yeah.
And I don't know, with so many other cars coming, do we change the transport directions, the traffic directions or not? Will it be like Japanese or will it be like before or now? That's a second concern.
Yeah, it reminds me of a cute story from a year ago where KFC had to decide which side of the street they would put their takeout.
Oh, by the way, the same happened in Russia, in far east of Russia, and the Moscow made special decisions that the whole country will be left side as before, but they have banned the right wheel sign cars to bring to Russia. There was a huge demonstration, and I think they have not stopped it. So this is something that you cannot stop overnight. So let's see. The time will show how much this, in terms of car, this agreement will go on. But there was also conversation, dialogue, I understand discussions among two leaders to have more Mongolians being trained in Japan. This coal, one is this clean coal industry. Of course, we need the people. We have technology from Japan. We need to get Mongolians prepared there, trained. But also there's a labor coming to Japan to work. That's, I really don't understand completely the policy of Mongolian government in that sense, because we have been exporting many Mongolians' labor to Korea for last almost 20 years, legally, illegally. But so what is the actual benefit for the economy in the country? Yeah. Because it's smallest pool labor country, 3 million people, only 1.5 million the most labor, and out of them about 100,000 people are working abroad, and 34,000 alone in Korea, and now they want to increase it to Japan. Yeah. So there is a lot social issues that we underestimate under this scheme that of sending our labor to other countries.
Yeah, and I think there's no denying that Japan is an important trade partner and will continue to do that for decades to come.
Well, remember that our third neighbor policy.
Yeah.
South and north neighbors are first and second neighbors, and the other countries the third neighbors, and we to have that policy based on economic cooperation. So that's we try to do that with Japan, and hopefully it will take off in a substantial way. In particular, remember this international airport.
Yes.
International airport is
at
being
Hoshikt.
yes, Hoshikt. Yeah, it's new international airport, 45 kilometers away from Ulaanbaatar city. Yeah. It's being constructed, and it is Japanese project, Japanese soft loan. And good news is it will be run by Japanese airport management company. And by that time, Japanese airlines may fly to Mongolia because they require particular standards that the Japanese companies can provide. But what I see behind, Terence, is with this such a huge extension of economic cooperation with Japan, Mongolia is becoming to a certain level of standard, certain level of consumption, even requirement standard. and supply standard, which I hope will help substantially the economic competitiveness of the country.
Yeah.
And Mongolians will learn at the end to compete with Japanese, which is good news.
Okay, it is good news. Well, that's our program for the evening. We hope our briefings give all of you a head start for the week ahead. Jorgel, any parting words?
Somehow, because the election, we keep staying with major topics of politicians, political parties, elections, and hopefully all the syndrome when it is finished, but it'll take all this month, and then hopefully we will have more economic and other business news for you. Anyway, thank you very much for staying with us. See you later. See you next Sunday.
Good night, all, Batar.